Welcome to the Bookworm Duo, where we explore a variety of books. Today, we explore a nonfiction bestseller.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, let's get started. This deep dive takes us into Killers of the Flower Moon, The Osage Murders and the Birth of the FBI by David Grann.
Okay.
Go to take you back in time to the 1920s, to Oklahoma,
Oh.
to the Osage Nation.
Wow.
They were incredibly wealthy.
Really?
Yeah, because of oil.
Ah,
Discovered on their land,
I see.
they were receiving these huge royalty checks,
Uh-huh.
making them some of the richest people in the world at the time.
Wow.
And then people start dying
Oh, no.
under mysterious circumstances.
Sounds like, quite the story.
Yeah.
It's a story that unfolds like a mystery where
Yeah.
Each death reveals a piece of a much larger and more sinister puzzle.
Yeah.
It starts subtly. With the death of Molly Burkhart's sister Minnie in 1918, it was attributed to some kind of wasting illness, but it was just the beginning of a horrifying trend.
Right. Molly Burkhart. She is our central figure in this story. She and her family, they were caught between two worlds, holding on to their Osage traditions while navigating a rapidly changing world fueled by oil money.
Right.
And as more members of her family die, Molly finds herself at the center of this terrifying mystery.
Oh, wow. So a few years after Minnie's death, another of Molly's sisters, Anna Brown, is found murdered.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, she had been shot. But here's the strange part.
All right.
The bullet is missing from the crime scene.
What?
It's a detail that immediately raises suspicion.
Yeah.
Was this a random act of violence or something more calculated?
Right. And it doesn't stop there. Charles Whitehorn, another Osage, is found dead by a creek, also shot.
Oh, God.
Fear starts to grip the Osage Nation.
Yeah.
They can't trust local law enforcement who seem either indifferent or inept.
Right.
And wild theories start circulating. Outlaws, jealous lovers, even curses.
Wow.
It's just... The situation was a powder keg of suspicion and fear.
It sounds like it. What's fascinating is how this all played out against the backdrop of Oklahoma in the 1920s.
Right.
It was a boomtown atmosphere, filled with fortune seekers and a mix of cultures. It was a place where ambition and lawlessness often went hand in hand.
Yeah.
And the Osage, with their newfound wealth, became targets.
Yeah. Molly's mother, Lizzie Q, is the next to die.
Oh, no.
Once again, it's attributed to some vague illness, but whispers of poisoning begin to circulate.
Oh, wow.
This pattern of these deaths,
Oh.
seemingly from natural causes, yet shrouded in suspicion,
Yeah.
becomes impossible to ignore.
Yeah, I can see that. This is where William Hale enters the story.
Yeah,
He's a prominent rancher, known as the king of the Osage Hills.
Right.
He was a friend to the Osage, and importantly, the uncle of Ernest Burkhart. Molly's husband,
Okay.
Hale, presented himself as this benevolent figure, but the truth, as we'll discover, is far more sinister.
And then the story takes this dramatic turn. With a horrifying act of violence,
Yeah.
the bombing of Bill Smith's house. Bill was married to Rita, another one of Molly's sisters. He died in the blast. And Rita and their daughter barely escaped.
Oh my gosh. This bombing was a turning point. It shattered any illusion of safety and underscored the lengths to which these killers were willing to go.
Right.
The brutality of the attacks sent shockwaves through the community and forced the authorities to finally take notice.
Right.
The question was no longer if someone was targeting the Osage,
Right.
but who and why.
Yeah. And as if the fear wasn't palpable enough, another Osage man, George Bighart, dies in a hospital shortly after claiming he had information about the murders.
Wow.
Poisoning is suspected yet again.
Oh my.
The Osage community is being terrorized.
Yeah.
And it seems like no one is safe.
God.
The authorities seem incapable of finding the culprits.
Yeah. The situation had reached a boiling point.
Right.
The Osage, desperate for justice, pleaded for federal intervention.
Oh.
It was clear that the local authorities were either overwhelmed or complicit in these crimes. The call for help went all the way to Washington, D.C., where a fledgling agency, the FBI, saw an opportunity to prove its worth.
Right.
Yeah.
That's where we'll leave off for now.
Yeah.
You've met Molly. His family is being picked off one by one.
Yeah.
And we've introduced William Hale, the powerful rancher who looms large in this story.
Right.
But what role did he play in these events? And what about the FBI's involvement? We'll get to all of that in part 2 of our deep dive.
Sounds good.
So we left off with the Osage Nation demanding justice for all these murders.
Right.
It was a turning point when the federal government could no longer ignore these cries for help.
Yeah, it really was. The Osage murders. They became a crucial test for the FBI, which,
That's it.
at the time, was a relatively new and untested organization.
Right.
They sent in Tom White, a former Texas Ranger, to lead the investigation.
Right.
White was a towering figure known for his methodical approach and his unwavering determination to get to the truth.
Wow.
He wasn't a flashy detective, but he was thorough and relentless.
So White arrives in Osage County, tasked with unraveling this complex web of murders and uncovering the truth. I mean, where did he even begin? Imagine the pressure,
Yeah, I can only imagine.
knowing the whole nation was watching.
White knew he had to approach this investigation differently, so he assembled a team of undercover agents.
Really?
Yeah, some disguised as cowboys, others as oil workers,
Wow.
blending seamlessly into the community.
Oh, wow.
Their mission was to gain the trust of the Osage people, gather information, and build a case against those responsible for the killings.
Wow.
It was a risky strategy, requiring patience and a deep understanding of the Osage culture.
It sounds like something out of a spy novel.
Yeah.
These undercover agents infiltrating this small Oklahoma town.
Mm.
Did they face any resistance?
Oh, absolutely. There was resistance.
Yeah.
The investigation was hampered by missing evidence, intimidated witnesses, and a pervasive atmosphere of fear.
Right.
Many people were afraid to talk, worried they might be the next victim. But White and his team persevered, slowly piecing together a puzzle. That pointed to a conspiracy far more extensive than anyone had imagined.
So it wasn't just about solving the murders anymore. It sounds like White stumbled upon something much bigger, a conspiracy
Yeah.
that went beyond individual acts of violence.
Exactly. As White dug deeper, he discovered this shocking network of financial exploitation, targeting the Osage.
Wow.
Remember, the Osage, they were incredibly wealthy. Due to the oil on their land,
Right.
they were assigned white guardians to manage their finances, a system rife with corruption and abuse.
It's mind-boggling how a system designed to protect the Osage actually enabled their exploitation. It's a stark reminder of how easily good intentions can be twisted
Yeah.
to serve greed and power.
Yeah. It was a perfect setup for someone like William Hale.
Oh, gosh.
He was a master manipulator, using his influence to control guardians and exploit the system for his own gain.
Right.
His plan, as White discovered, was to marry his nephews to Osage women,
Really?
ensuring he would inherit their head rights, essentially shares of the oil wealth. After they died,
So it all comes back to Hale. But how could he get away with something so audacious? Marrying into the tribe to inherit their wealth is one thing, but orchestrating a string of murders to expedite the process, it sounds too brazen, too risky.
Hale was a calculating and ruthless individual. He understood the power dynamics at play and knew how to manipulate the system to his advantage.
Right.
He cultivated relationships with law enforcement, intimidated potential witnesses, and used his wealth to buy silence and loyalty.
Wow.
He created an environment where fear and corruption thrived, making it difficult to connect him directly to the crimes.
But White was determined to expose Hale's web of deceit. He had to find a way to break through the wall of silence and
Right.
bring the truth to light.
Right, and the turning point came from an unlikely source, a prison informant.
Wow.
This informant revealed Hale's plot to bomb the Smiths, providing a crucial piece of the puzzle that White had been searching for. He was finally able to connect Hale directly to the violence that had been plaguing the Osage.
That must have been a huge breakthrough for White. He could finally start holding those responsible for this reign of terror accountable. But how did he build a case strong enough to bring down someone as powerful as Hale?
Well, White used this new information to pressure Ernest Burkhart, Molly's husband and Hale's nephew, into confessing.
Really?
Yeah, Burkhart, torn between loyalty to his family and the weight of his conscience, agreed to cooperate.
Oh, wow.
His confession implicated Hale and a hired killer named John Ramsey in the murder of Henry Roan, Molly's first husband.
It's incredible how White was able to turn the tables and use Hale's own family against him. What a devastating betrayal for Hale, to be exposed by his own flesh and blood. But what about Molly in all of this? Where does she fit into this intricate web of betrayal and violence?
Well, Molly's story is at the heart of this tragedy. She suffered unimaginable loss, witnessing the deaths of her sisters, her mother, and even her husband.
Oh, God.
And all the while, she had to navigate this treacherous world, knowing that danger lurked around every corner,
Right.
yet she never gave up hope for justice.
Her strength and resilience in the face of such adversity are truly remarkable. She becomes a symbol of the Osage people's struggle for survival and their determination to fight for their rights.
Yeah. With Burkhart's confession in hand, White finally had the evidence he needed to arrest Hale and Ramsey.
Wow.
The stage was set for a dramatic showdown in the courtroom, where the truth would finally be revealed.
It sounds like the climax of a gripping thriller, this moment of reckoning. After years of fear and uncertainty, But did justice prevail? Did Hale and his accomplices finally face the consequences of their actions?
Wow.
Well, we left off with Hale and Ramsey under arrest, finally facing justice for their roles in the Osage Reign of Terror.
Right.
These trials have followed. They were nothing short of dramatic,
Yeah.
capturing the nation's attention.
As all these dark secrets of Osage County were laid bare.
The courtroom became a battleground, with Hale using his wealth and influence to try and sway the jury and intimidate witnesses. He was a master manipulator, even when facing this overwhelming evidence against him. It's a classic tale of power and corruption trying to subvert the justice system. Did Hale's tactics work? Were the trials as straightforward as everyone hoped they would be?
No, not at all. The trials were filled with twists and turns, with Burkhart initially recanting his confession under pressure from Hale.
Really?
Yeah. Just imagine the tension in the courtroom, the weight of so many lives lost, and the fear that justice might slip away.
It must have been just a complete betrayal for White and the Osage.
Yeah.
To see Hale using his power to manipulate the very system that was supposed to hold him accountable. What happened? Did the truth prevail in the end?
Well, despite Hale's attempts to obstruct justice, the evidence against him and Ramsey was too strong to ignore.
Yeah.
They were both convicted of Henry Roan's murder.
Oh.
A small victory in the face of so much tragedy.
But that was just for one murder. What about all the other deaths, the suspicious poisonings, the disappearances? Did they ever get justice for those?
Unfortunately, that's where this story takes another tragic turn. Despite White's best efforts, Hale and Ramsey were never convicted for any of the other murders.
Oh, wow.
The evidence was circumstantial, witnesses were afraid to testify, and Hale's influence just seemed to permeate every corner of the legal system.
It's a heartbreaking reminder that justice is not always served, especially when those in power are determined to protect themselves. What happened to Hale and Ramsey after the Roan trial? Did they spend the rest of their lives behind bars?
No, sadly no. Hale, despite receiving a life sentence, was eventually paroled after serving only a few years.
What?
It was a shocking turn of events that outraged the Osage community.
Yeah.
As for Ramsey, he also received a life sentence, but was later pardoned and released from prison.
It's hard to fathom how these men, responsible for so much pain and suffering, could be allowed to walk free. What about Molly? How did she cope with the aftermath of all this?
Well, Molly, despite losing so much, showed remarkable resilience. She remarried, had more children, and continued to live in Osage County. Her story is a testament to the strength and endurance of the Osage people in the face of unimaginable adversity.
It's a bittersweet ending to a dark chapter in American history. The Osage Nation endured this horrific ordeal, and while some measure of justice was served, the scars of those events run deep.
Yeah. The Osage murders, they exposed the dark underbelly of the American dream, revealing the greed, corruption, and racism that plagued the nation.
Right.
But it also highlighted the courage of those who fought for justice and the potential for institutions like the FBI to evolve and address systemic wrongs.
And that's what makes Killers of the Flower Moon such a powerful and important book. It's not just a true crime story. It's a reflection on the complexities of American history, the enduring struggle for justice, and the importance of remembering these stories so they never repeated.
Exactly. The book serves as a reminder that the fight for justice is an ongoing process, and we must remain vigilant against the forces of greed, prejudice, and corruption that threaten to undermine the very foundations of our society.
Well, thank you for taking us on this deep dive into Killers of the Flower Moon. It's been a harrowing journey, but one that's ultimately filled with hope and a call to action.
It was my pleasure.
Thanks for joining us. Subscribe for more bookish adventures, and hit that like button if you enjoyed the ride. Don't forget to share the knowledge. Spread the word.